So we're standing at Aurora University right now, and we're going to record another podcast in the Grad School SOS series, part of the Aurora University Pulse blog. And this one, we're going to discuss the things that I wish I knew before I started grad school. A lot of times you think about things that you wish you know during and after and everything else, but this is something that we all wish that we had known prior to going into this adventure of graduate degrees. I'm Corey Breedlove. I'm an MBA student coming to the close of my MBA career.
I'm Brian Soik, also MBA student, also coming to the close of my MBA career.
I'm Tamara Turner. I'm a surviving graduate student and a returner.
I'm Kayla Wasco. I'm also an MBA student, and I work here on campus.
Dr. Kyle McElhenney. I teach chemistry here at Aurora University, so I survived the graduate school journey.
And Dr. Leila Siami, I as well survived the long graduate school journey. I am now teaching here in the MSDMA.
We have a few different things that we're going to talk about during this podcast, and one of the things that I really wish that I had known before going into it was exactly how time-consuming this degree was actually going to be. Everybody tells you that it's going to be hard and that you're going to spend a lot of time doing it, but you don't necessarily realize exactly how much time it's going to take. And I'm not saying that it's not doable, because as you can hear from everybody here, we've all done it or are almost finished doing it. But it's one of those things that it is a huge commitment. It has high expectations and it's demanding, but it's a very, very rewarding experience. And I can't concentrate on the rewarding part enough. But it's one of those things that between homework and work, which most of us have jobs, and actually trying to have some sort of social life, it's hard to balance all of that. So unfortunately, you can't really slack on your homework and you can't really slack on your work. So what usually has to get cut out is that social aspect of your life, which you just don't realize necessarily how much that's going to be. I don't know how you guys...
Well, yeah, and in your undergrad, you could, if you skip class, it really wasn't that big a deal. Most of the time, you could not go to class for days on end. It wasn't a big deal, but in your grad, in your MBA, you got to show up. I mean, it's not really an option. I mean, not only for grading purposes, but almost because that's where you're getting the majority of the information is from the discussion that you're having in class. So if you really want to, unless you want to just spend the money to spend money, you need to show up to the class, and it does take up time. And there's a lot more research involved. Not that there's not research involved in your undergrad, but there's more in-depth research and more maybe actual kind of personal research. Like you'll find yourself relating it to your normal life a lot more, using real life examples to bring to school and to work into your grad school.
Yeah, and to go off the time thing, I mean, class is only one night a week, so you do have to spend so much more time out of class. I think that's a big difference from undergrad, too. You usually have class 2 or 3 days a week, so, you can get all your homework and stuff figured out then, but you have to set aside time outside of class to do it. So either you get up early in the morning before you go to work, or you're up super late at night trying to finish stuff up, too.
And then one thing that I wish I knew before starting grad school was, what's the best place to eat for dinner? Because you're coming straight from work, and you have to eat, or else by 8 o'clock you're dead in class.
Yeah, that's so true. That's one of those things that, when you start, you're like, okay, do I eat dinner before? And then you're eating dinner at 4 or 5 o'clock, and you're like, I'm not even hungry right now. Or you're going home and you're eating at 10 o'clock at night, and you're like, I'm going to bed in an hour. I really probably shouldn't be eating right now, but I'm going to anyway.
And then you're sitting in class and you're like, all you want is food.
And all you're thinking is, and I'm like, why didn't the professor bring dinner for everyone? I don't understand. On the time thing, though, I think Corey, it's not a week goes by that I don't get an email from Corey at 1:30 in the morning, and I'm like, what? What are you doing?
Yeah, that's the only time that I have an email, you guys.
I would also say, in graduate school or MBA program, I mean, not that I went through the MBA program, but a lot of your social life revolves around also your graduate work. I know for me, getting my PhD in chemistry, my social life pretty much was all around my other fellow graduate students in my program. And I imagine it'd be something similar in MBA.
Mm-hmm. I think another thing that I really wish that I had known going in was just about group meetings in general. When you look at your undergraduate degree and you think about the group meetings that you used to have, I just remember spending hours at a time sitting in, our business school and just talking with the 5 members of my group. And, we'd be there multiple days a week talking about everything that we had to get done for our group project. And I remember the first class that I started in my MBA, we had a group project assigned to us. And I was like, okay, so when do you guys want to meet outside of class? And everybody kind of looked at me like, yeah, no, we don't do that. Like, we're not going to meet outside of class. And I was like, oh, okay. And, then you realize you email each other, you do Google Hangouts. There's all these other options that are out there because everybody's so busy that they don't have time to carve out 2 or 3 hours to just meet and talk about this project anymore. So it's interesting because then as I moved on in my MBA career, and then I would have somebody that would be new come into the class then, and they would say the same thing, asking if, when do you want to meet? And then I got to be the one that was like, no, we're not doing that. So it's just one of those kind of like a life cycle type thing. You realize what's going on, but that was definitely something that I wish that I had known before I started.
Yeah, I remember, I think Kayla might have been in it with me. There was a class where we had to make a kite. And I don't.
There
you go. Yeah, I had to make a kite, and the only time that we could get for my group to work was like Sunday morning at like 7:30 in the morning. So we're showing up. I got the kid with me. We're showing up here on campus to make a kite and put a kite together. And then 2 of the guys were the teachers. They're the graduate assistants, and so they had been up like all night reviewing videotape, and it was just. But that's what you got to do. You got to record your kite, you got to make a kite, and you got to find a way to get it in, and you got 5-6 people that all got to coordinate schedules, and everybody's working 40-plus hours a week, and they got a family and a life to manage. It's rough.
So can I ask you all a question? Do you feel like you have who is your support? I mean, do you use each other for support? Because I'm with Kyle, like, when you were talking about you hang out with people in your program, that's how I was, too. Do you feel like you use each other for support, or is it more just once in a while like, hey, it's okay, don't give up, keep going? Or is it more like your family and friends and all of that?
I don't know if there's a ton of hanging out after hours, but, what I do see is that after your first couple classes, because everybody's kind of on this cycle of going through classes in the same class we're all working towards, you get to know people in the class well, and I still exchange emails with people that graduated 6 months ago because you get to know them through the class. I haven't hung out much outside of class. Any of you?
No, I'm a graduate assistant here, so there's about 6 or 7 other GAs, so we definitely do hang out a little bit, but in terms of just people in classes outside of that, there's not too much. I think it's because you're not always taking the same class together as well. I've had a couple classes with Brian and one with Corey, but I think it's a little different when you don't have every single class together.
Yeah, me personally, I don't hang out. I have a family and work, and I do my work, I email, and that's the basic things that I do.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the only time that I've actually hung out with people outside of class was when we actually planned to go have like a celebration dinner after we were actually done with the class. And that was something that we had planned with our professor and everything at the time, so everybody knew that we were going to do it. Outside of that, when I see them, it's usually at some sort of event for the school. So support-wise, it's definitely been a lot more on family, and then even friends that I've had in the past that have gone through other graduate school programs, but not necessarily this one in particular.
It makes me feel very, awkwardly social now, as if we're not trying hard enough. Yeah.
I just know, when I was going through school, it was interesting because I would even ask advice from my fellow classmates, and then we'd go, socialize outside of class, and they'd give you they'd give you tips and tricks, and don't take this teacher, take another teacher, or this is what this teacher really likes. This is how you can get an A in the class, and I get all the advice I can get. So I don't know.
I think it's important whether or not you get that support in your class with the other students, or you get it outside of class, family, friends. I think it is a necessity to survive grad school. Especially if you're taking years out of your life for graduate school, there's going to be some point where you're like, do I really want to keep doing this? And you got to push through it, and having that support really, really helps you get through that.
Agreed.
All right, so anything else anybody wants to discuss before we call this out for the night? So, all right, well, that's it again, coming at you from the Aurora University Recording Studio. This is Grad School SOS.